I think for Weston McKennie, he's thinking, I stay up and the team does well. Whoever comes in, we respawn. There's a different, there's a different ideology, whether it's the tactics, whether the coach wants to open things up and it helps everyone within the squad so they get the results. He stays up and then stays, or B, they get relegated and he goes back to Juve because he's on loan and then makes another summer move. So I think for him, I'm going to do the best I can in the next 5 months or so. And either I stay and we're still in the Prem, or I go back to Juve and I find a new club. Tyler Adams, He's set. He's playing no matter what coach comes in. He's arguably the best player that they have. So I think he's making a summer move regardless because he's balled so well. I mean, we're talking about the World Cup this year in the Prem. He's proved his worth. I think Brenden Aaronson is the one that's kind of in no man's land because you were brought in by Jesse Marsch, the coach who invested a lot of money in you. If the next coach comes in and given this year and then the next year, if they stay up or they don't stay up and they don't see the value, then you're either not playing and they're trying to offload you, right? So it's a very difficult position for Brenden Aaronson if he doesn't start playing well and getting time under the new manager.
And they paid some good money for Brenden Aaronson.
They did.
30 plus million in the transfer window. And he fits the style that you're talking about, Chuck, that Jesse likes to play. He was the prototypical player for that particular system. So I'm very curious to see who the manager comes in and what they elect to do with our Americans in particular. About Tyler Adams, he's a lock. I think he's proven it. I think everybody at Leeds loves that dude for obvious reasons, just as much as we love him here for the national team. I actually think in some ways this benefits Weston McKennie to have a new manager come in, because this new manager can come in, hear all the players that I have at my disposal. What is the best way to play with the talent that I have at hand? And I think they're probably going to get away from the rock and roll 100 miles an hour football and probably try to figure out how to put all these pieces together in a way that might be maybe play a little bit more wide. That allows, if they play with more width, that's going to allow Weston to join the attack more meaningfully. If they play so narrow, it's harder for him to find those gaps. That's just one thing for me from a soccer nerd perspective. But Brenden is interesting. He can play wide, of course. He can play centrally, as we've seen. But how do you – I mean, every coach, I think, is going to love a player like Brenden Aaronson for obvious reasons, because he's going to run through a wall for you no matter what. And he seems so coachable. We've talked about him before. You just tell him to do these three things. He's going to do those three things to the best of his ability and then try to overachieve in those areas. So it's just a matter of how do you get the most out of him and put him in the right spots to make that happen, Heath?
I mean, it's tough to say. You kind of got to just keep giving him chances. Again, he's in the dip of form right now too. So it wasn't just a Jesse, or it'd be any manager that would see that dip of form. And it's expected of a player his age, right, to go through this. He had the high highs going into a World Cup, and then the downside of that, he's got to rebuild from all that. But he's just got to keep waiting to get his chances. The upside for Brenden Aaronson is that I think he can be impactful as a super sub. Like he can be meaningful for any team that he's on, even if his role is not a 90-minute role, right? We're seeing that with Gio Reyna right now. Is just like you give him minutes and he's going to find a way to be impactful, which is really important in terms of his style of play. But when I think about also Weston McKennie, a lot of shouts of like, was this a bad move? Is this the wrong move? My worry is that you get to a Juventus, outside of the top 3 teams in 4 of the 5 leagues, only the Premier League can pay those wages, right? Like you're talking about Serie A, there's maybe 3-4 teams that could pay his wage. Spain, 3-4 teams that can pay that wage. He's making a lot of money, and the Premier League's the only place that's paying those types of wages, that it kind of limits where you can go and then limits who's got the budget and who's available. That I always worry about, like looking through that lens, because the 3 of us would be in a very tough position as well if that type of opportunity is coming around. And, there's life beyond the sport. Not to say you would prioritize that, but he's got a certain wage level that's expected, that perhaps the Leeds is the only type of place, or the Premier League is a place that can actually feed, because he's not quite I think maybe a top 3 starter across all those leagues yet. And the Premier League might be the only place that can keep that going for him. Just Leeds is in a tough spot. And now it's gotten even more complicated.
I think, just to chime in very quickly on this Weston McKennie, I don't think he made the wrong decision. I think it worked out. I think Chuck mentioned it. It's only a loan. He's got 6 months. Leeds can see if he's the guy that can help move them forward. And he can see if this is the team he wants to play on, and if this is the league that he wants to compete in. And I think it's good for both parties. And then ultimately they can make a decision over.
But again, he wasn't impactful, by the way, in his first game. But again, you put him right into the game, and you go,
how could he though, man? 30 minutes.
That's what I mean. Like 30 minutes in a tough situation. But like, you still look at it and you go, at no point did Weston McKennie look like he didn't belong in the Premier League, Right, and I think that's the difference, is like, it's not a Jermaine Jones loan or a Josie Altidore or a Michael Bradley loan? Like, can they play at the Premier League level at a high level? Like, you throw Weston McKennie in for his 30 minutes and you go, okay, he gets it. He settles in right away and you can see the qualities, which I think is another benefit to to just the level of player we have in the national team right now at the age that they are.
Now, Chuck, I want you to answer this question directly, but there's a comment from Jack who says it was an absolute mistake for Weston to go there. And I don't think it was. He's got 6 months. He's got a get out of jail free card. He doesn't have to stay there long term.
You can't answer that question yet.
Yeah, right. That's a good way to say it.
Well,
your thoughts?
I think for any player, you want to continue to test yourself, and you also want to play in the best league in the world. The English Premier League is the best league in the world. So for Weston McKennie, I'm thinking I'm going to get to go to a team that's in desperate need of my skill set, my ability to come in and keep us up. I get to play alongside my boys, especially Tyler Adams, because we play in the midfield together for the national team. It's a dream scenario if things go well. It's a dream scenario. And then you figure from there, I can make a big move. I can make the big jump to one of the big four or the big six in the Prem. So yeah. I think for Weston McKennie, it's a wait and see. We're easily gonna see what he looks like in the Prem, given that the manager comes in. I got Weston McKennie from Juve on loan. I'm going to use him because he deserves to be playing in that team. And then it's just to see if this is the right move for him, or should he have taken maybe a bigger team in a smaller league, or a smaller team within the Prem, or a team that's a little bit better in a better situation. So
But also, Charlie, if you're Weston and you look at that thumping they took to Napoli when that was your chance to actually go after a title race, you're like, I'm just a Juventus player now, right? We're not going to win Champions League. We're not going to win the league. Like, that's why you go to the Juventuses of the world to compete for those. They take a thumping and now they're out of that title race. He's got to think about himself and like what that means for his own career beyond, just staying there to see it out another 6 months. Because what's the difference? Do you think his stock rises by taking this chance, or playing the next 15 to 20 at Juventus as a Juventus player, or can it drop so much? I guess there is a risk there, but I respect him taking it.
Okay, so let's get into the big question here. And the timing seems interesting. U.S. men's national team job is open. They're looking at candidates. They're looking at the previous coach, Greg Berhalter, to remain in this position. But there's no sporting director. There's no general manager of the U.S. men's national team. It's pretty wide open. There's a lot of spots to fill on the men's side over here in U.S. soccer. Jesse Marsch, when I went over there, by the way, because you referenced it a little bit earlier, Chuck, when I went over there, they had just beaten Chelsea. I went like the peak part of the season. Everybody was in a great mood. Everybody was high-fiving and giving hugs and all kinds of stuff.
They let you right in. Yeah, they let you right in.
They're like, you want to come to training? Come to training. You want to sit in the video meeting? I'm like, yes. Come sit in the video meeting. You want to meet everybody and high five? I was like, yes, I want to do all that. I want to go to training. I want to see all that. It was amazing. It was awesome. And I can't thank Jesse and the staff and all the players for accommodating me in that way. And then I got to go to their cup game, which they won 3-1. That was probably the best week to be there. And when I spoke to Jesse afterwards, just peppered him with questions about why he did certain things at training, what he was working on, and kind of learning the coaching side of things and preparation and his methodology more upfront and personal. I said, oh, hey, by the way, you want to take the U.S. men's national team job? Would you take it at some point? And at that point, obviously, he was in the midst of such a great week. And he's like, no, that would be way down the line. I want to prove myself here in Europe. I'm obviously want to be in the thick of this with Leeds for many years. And I wonder, now that this has happened, if that thinking changes. That, because we've talked about it before, boys, where to coach the U.S. men's national team in a World Cup that you're hosting, not to say that managing the U.S. at any point in a World Cup is special, but to do it in the World Cup that you're hosting, I think takes it to another level. And I think Jesse is probably pretty primed to make that happen. Now, people are going to be like, oh, he's a system guy, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to work. Listen, Gareth Southgate wasn't a great club manager.
Yeah, but Jimmy, we all agreed that you cannot hire a coach, though, until you hire the other roles.
I get that. I agree with it. But this feels like a bit of, I don't know, coincidence, a fortuitous opportunity to be like, all right, because Jesse, you bring him in, and I think people universally like the guy. Like, he's not going to go in there and boss people around. I think he's there to compromise and work and figure out ways so that we can get the best out of everybody. That's the MO that I associate with Jesse Marsch. But I agree with you. Yes, we should hire those other positions. But I wonder now if Jesse's perspective changes.